Hi everyone, welcome to the garden. So this is a Q&A video answering all the questions you guys put underneath my story, and because there are so many more questions than I expected, I had to make a YouTube video about it. There were more than 10. I couldn't make 10 reels to answer every single one of your questions, but I did make timestamps on this video, so if you go look down right now, you will be able to see which question is answered where. So if you have a specific one and you're not interested in the other ones, you could just skip to the one that you asked. So I have screenshots of all of your questions. I'm going to put them here or here, depends when I'm editing, and I will answer them. I'll answer with the first one right now. So the first question is how to take notes in subjects like math and physics, which I can't read for more than 10 minutes. So read the textbook for the processes. So instead of reading all of the little detailed information and who the mathematician was, you don't need to know any of those things down unless specifically the teacher tells you that's going to be on a multiple choice exam. Then you could just write down so-and-so made this. But most of the fact is, the most important part is for math is going to be how you answer your questions. So for math and physics, I would say do practice questions, and then whenever you make an error, basically make practice questions your notes. So you're gonna have to subtitle of whatever chapter you have, like solving derivatives, and then you're going to write down all of the different processes that were mentioned in that book, because the exam is going to be focused on those processes, and then you're going to make notes on which part you made a mistake on, which part you couldn't understand, and why certain steps work. So like, oh, this theorem or this rule is why I had to choose this step. So you're applying it instead of mindlessly writing it down, because mindlessly writing it down, it doesn't help you apply it in situations like math and physics. And in my personal opinion, you do not need to take traditional notes with highlighters and color coding for math and physics. So that would be my answer for that. If you have any more questions, of course DM me, but that would be my answer for your first question. Second would be remembering things. So remembering things is something that ADHDers really have a hard time with, and it's kind of biological. So unfortunately, we're not going to be the best at remembering things. So for me, I would actually make a video separately on how I remember what to do every single day. But if it's just something broad like how do I remember something, I always have this tip. For us, we have to see it. So write it down, and if you have to write it on your hand, I used to do that. I wrote things on the back of my hand. If you find that a little bit embarrassing, buy a clear phone case and have a post-it note of things that you have to remember and put it in the back of your phone case so you could see it, because you usually are, we're kind of addicted to our phones anyway. Another tip would be to put post-it notes around your house. Post-it notes are your best friend, or set alarms. Or if it's something about more like an academic topic, I would say to use you have to do revision, but revision on your notes that were dedicated to an ADHD style. So I did kind of mentioned in my next videos or my reels on how to take notes or how to make cheat sheets. So if you want to know how to remember those cheat sheets, it really just takes time and and basically looking at them over and over and trying to train yourself on them, but then having those cheat sheets be dedicated to an ADHD specific mind. So I will have a video on that. It's called the quadrant rule. So you have a quadrant. I'm going to post it on my story so you guys have a free guide whenever you forget about it. It's going to be in the garden highlight, and basically you make a cheat sheet on that topic, and you're going to read that cheat sheet every single day, before in the morning, once at night, when you're in the subway, when you have free time, and that is how you're going to memorize those things. If you want, you can make flashcards and just do them whenever you have time, but for us it's repetition and seeing it as often as possible. That is how you're going to remember things. Next question would be, is active recall difficult for an ADHD student? I would say active recall isn't that difficult, depending on how long-term your active recall sessions would be scheduled. So I would say if you're doing active recall a week after you've made those notes, they are going to be challenging whether or not you are an ADHD student or not. So my reference would be to have a schedule where you do active recall very frequently for a subject, and then instead of doing a forced active recall, you're going to break them into really small chunks and do them over a course of time in a more kinesthetic learning environment, which means flashcards, and you're doing that while you're eating lunch, while you're going somewhere, while you're on the subway, while you're in the elevator, things like that. And also I would say active recall is technically the best proven way to remember anything. So even though it is challenging for us ADHD students, we could modify the way we do the active recall, but I would say active recall should be a key part of your study regimen. So reading long textbooks for physics. I would say, as I kind of repeat, but I'll just clarify again. For physics and math, or I think biology is a little bit different. I'm a biomedical engineer. Biology does have a lot of things you have to memorize and context and more processes. But for physics and math, where processes have definite rules attached to them and formulas, I'd recommend against reading the textbook like it is the holy grail. I would say focus more on the examples that they give you. And when you kind of don't understand why they did or why they took that step in the example, you go through and look through the textbook for the context of why that happened. That is the only way you should be using the textbook, in my opinion, for that, and to check your answers. You do not really need to read the long textbook, because for physics and math and these more numerical subjects, they're going to be really, really hard to understand, because they're going to, in my opinion, they're describing things that occur using language, and you could just forfeit that and just skip all that by looking at exactly how it occurs in numbers, because in an exam situation, you're going to be dealing with numbers anyway. So this is something that I really struggle with, which is procrastination with IG and YouTuber Reels. So as someone who makes Reels and YouTube, I spend a lot of time scrolling through them, and it is so easy to get addicted. And I mean, they're literally made to bring you dopamine, and we lack dopamine. So it's kind of like a bad addiction, a toxic relationship, if you will. And for that, I would say, put your phone in phone jail. That is kind of the only option that you can have. And you need to, and this is what I kind of think of it, it's okay to be on your phone and use your phone, but I would say have a balance of using it while have a balance, which is kind of like what everyone tells you, including your parents. But I would say, make sure that you spend equal time on any electronic device as you do outside. And that seems really hard to do, but when you really think about it, that is actually the only way you could truly get off your phone. Because I would say, when I'm outside hanging out with friends or I'm walking, I'm physically unable to reach my phone. If you are constantly sitting or laying down, I feel like those postures itself kind of lean into you ending up using your phone. So I would say, be more physical. If you really want to cut that addiction and it's ruining your life, because for a moment in my life, it really did, I would say move more, because that was the period of my time I was the most sedentary, not unsanitary, sedentary, and I was sitting most of the time. So I would say, be more active, put your phone in phone jail, charge your phone a lot more. If you need to, set timers on your phone to stop using it. Tell your parents and have them, confiscate it from you. It really depends on how bad you want it, because there are methods to get rid of it. I also sometimes do this where I have 2 accounts on my Instagram. One is for fun reels and one is for more academic ones, or one is for motivating ones. And I watch that second, I switch my account to the more motivating ones. So then it's like the dopamine menu plus the YouTube theory, where when you watch someone who's very, very enthusiastic about studying, you are like, oh, I'm motivated to do that too. And I have separate accounts for that. I have accounts for organization, I have accounts for health and fitness, and I go through these different accounts and I get motivated by different things, and it drives me to get off my phone and do and manifest those things in real life instead of doom scrolling. So that is my kind of hot tip, and also a really good tip. I might make a reel about that, because that is how you can fuse a lot of the things that I've talked about into one, and it's very, very accessible and achievable. So thank you for that question. This is now another question is, my family distracting me. This happens a lot. I don't really relate to it because I'm an only child and my house is very, very quiet except for my cat. But I would say, for this, I would have to say, put a lock on your door and have a discussion with your family about it. Usually when you say that I'm going to study, they will respect that, but I'm just going to assume it's not that easy and they won't respect it. I would say, if possible, try to be outside of your house. I don't know how old you are, but if possible, there usually is a community library, or you could go to a church or somewhere which is really, really quiet and do your studying there. Feeling sleepy the moment I start studying. When you do have that kind of issue, I would say, go to an environment and body double. That would be my biggest tip. Body double, because when you're there, you are socially peer pressured into not sleeping. You go public places where you would feel uncomfortable and your body would feel uncomfortable and unsafe to sleep in, and study there if needed. And if you can't do that, go to your I would say stuff like, go to your living room, go somewhere where you can't sleep and study there instead. So how to make a schedule, and I would give you a more detailed response on how to make a schedule very, very soon. But I do want, under the comments below, what type of schedule would you like? A lifestyle schedule or a study schedule? I would want clarifications. If I don't get clarifications, I could make one on both. But obviously, if you're more urgent on a study one or a lifestyle one, it would be better if you clarified. So I do want some clarifications in the comments, and of course, feel free to ask questions in the comments. I would probably be able to write more detailed responses there on my computer. And if you ask a really, really good comment, I would dedicate a video for you, and that I think would be pretty cool. I don't know. Sorry. ADHD paralysis. ADHD paralysis is a very, very big thing. I used to get it a lot. That's actually kind of how I went to get diagnosed for ADHD, because I would not know how to begin anything and just sit there. I have a reel for that, which is how to get rid of ADHD paralysis, and that is to, I would say you have to know the source of the paralysis, and that is decision fatigue. So you do not want to make a decision. So a lot of times you have to force that decision to be made. And when you force a decision to be made, you now narrow your decisions down to yes or no, and that makes things a lot easier and your paralysis to go away a lot faster. So I would say things like put it in a jar, shake it, or flip a coin on it. Those things, as silly as it sounds, they do work for ADHD paralysis. Or if it's like ADHD, because ADHD does lead to other types of mental illnesses like depression and anxiety, which I all experienced. I would say if it's a depressive episode, that would be a different topic. If it's a depressive episode, just doing marbles or a dice or a coin will not help on that. So I do want you to kind of try the flipping a coin method, and if you still can't do that, maybe consider it's not ADHD paralysis and it could be something else. And if you want advice on that, because I've experienced it as well, put it in the comments. So how to study for a speaking exam and how to beat procrastination. So beating procrastination really comes down to why you are procrastinating something. Are you procrastinating it because you don't want to do it? And that is usually the case. We usually have a tendency of being a really big perfectionist, and then because we don't think we could achieve that perfection, we get really uncomfortable and we just don't do it just at all. So I would say in those cases, you do the 10-minute rule. Trick yourself into saying, I'm just going to do this for 10 minutes. Usually you will bring momentum and be able to do it. If not, you have the confidence to tell yourself, hey, yesterday I did it for 10 minutes. I could do this again for 15. Slow steps. It might sound silly, but when you're a perfectionist, you have a tendency of dismissing small things. Don't do it to this one, okay? To beat procrastination, do small chunks and slide a little bit into your daily routine, and it will be easier, and you will get confidence and you will trust in yourself, and that trust will lead to a lack of procrastination urges. And the other part of the question was how to study for a speaking exam. So I don't know if you guys know this, but I did a international baccalaureate, which is IB, and I did 2 languages from it, and I both aced my speaking exam, which is called an IO, and I had to study for it a lot. So what I did was I made a script. So for ADHD, structure and categorization is really, really important. So I would say make sure you have a hook, body, conclusion, and you make it in like a Google Docs, and you make those little charts format. And then when you write things down, make sure you have multiple rough drafts. And then I really want you to, I might make a separate video on it because I did study a lot on it. I do have materials from high school I could show you guys. But for a speaking exam, I would say make sure you time yourself and know around what time you're supposed to be done, because with ADHD we have a tendency of rambling on, which I am doing a little bit, but you have to know when to stop, because 2 things happen in an oral exam. 1, you get nervous, you start talking very fast. 2, you sometimes when you're really nervous, you forget what you just said and you have a tendency of repeating things. So those 2 things can be stopped by knowing how long a certain part of your oral exam is supposed to take. So if you know your introduction is supposed to take 1 minute because your oral examination is in total 10, then you need to be able to practice that, but be able to watch your time and be able to monitor yourself. With ADHD, practice, obviously, study, practice, make a good script, but monitoring yourself during an exam and practicing a lot and looking at the time while you do it is the most crucial, because we do have time blindness. And I guess that is all for the questions that I have been asked. If you have any more questions, put it down below and I would try my best to answer them as thoroughly as possible. Also, you guys, thank you for giving me some video ideas, because sometimes as a creator, it's really hard for me to know what people want to see. And when you guys give me direct answers like these, it makes my life so much easier. And I know I get the satisfaction of knowing that this is exactly what someone needs out there. So I will be making videos on how to make a schedule, how to study specifically for physics, math, and I would make a video on how to study for an oral examination, because I actually have a lot of materials on that, so that would be a big help. Whatever you want, if there's something that you urgently need or a question that you really want to ask, make sure you put it in the comments. Feel free. I usually answer them as soon as I can within a day or 2. So that would be all for this video. Thank you, and that would be all for today. Thank you.